We're back. It's the Writers Roundtable. Tonight, we got some special guests tonight, don't we, Matt?
We do indeed. We have a loaded cast tonight. We have a Dynasty show for you coming up right now. We have Dynasty buys, sells. We're bringing back Love 'em or List 'em. We're talking Dynasty startup etiquette. We're talking about all things Dynasty in this episode, and we couldn't have a better duo joining us. We have Jonathan Lang joining us again, and we have the pinnacle of promos, the satire savant. I'm messing up this intro, but I'm just going to say it's the Podfather himself, Matt Kelly. Seth, bring us in.
All right, let's start the show. And wow, this is messed up, but here we are, the Writers Roundtable. Thanks, guys, for joining us this evening. Really appreciate you stopping by.
All the names are wrong.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the overlay right now, so there we go. I think.
Hey, you got it. You got it right.
I think we fixed it. I think we did it.
Hey, live television.
Hold on. Now it's perfect. Now it's good. All right.
So live television. It's fine.
Oh yeah. So here we are. About a month, 3 weeks away from the draft, and everybody's in their dynasty startups. And this has been dynasty startups, and we couldn't, just judging by what I saw, what we all saw in the Sonic Truth, we thought maybe it would be a good idea. You know, I'm a teacher. Like, I like to teach people things. You know, I like to give people an opportunity to learn. You know, it's in my nature to provide knowledge for people. So we thought, who better to talk about dynasty etiquette tonight than the Podfather, Jonathan Lang, the Writers Roundtable. So when you're going into your dynasty league, your startup, before you even draft, what things do you need to know, Matt?
Well, first of all, I think for most people, a dynasty startup is a really heightened sense of importance because you're drafting these guys for their careers. Not many people are in that many dynasty leagues. I happen to be in a lot of dynasty leagues, so it's a little bit different. But I think the average person's in one or two dynasty leagues, and so the dynasty startup is a big event. It's a big deal. So I understand that some people get really jazzed up, and you know they get that they get that syrup in them, you know, and right. So the adrenaline's pumping, and you have to get in the chat and make and start talking. There's always a couple guys in the chat that are going to be yapping, and it's understandable. It's totally understandable. It's just you might want to read the room and see if you're in a league with a bunch of people that you know, or a bunch of people where you know they're in one or two startups or they're in one or two dynasty leagues. Probably in that case, the chat's going to be hopping, and there's going to be a lot of trash talk. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. But if you're in a league where all the guys are high volume players, it's kind of like a poker table, right? Where it's like, okay, this is a poker table that's on ESPN, and no one says anything the entire time. There's no talking. It's silent the entire time. So that's more of what I end up finding myself in this the startup draft that I talked about in the Sonic Truth show. But there just happened to be one guy that didn't realize that he was on ESPN and that there was a bunch of killers, and he was just yapping, and it made for great content. I was like, man, this guy's annoying. This guy's touting his picks. This guy's belittling other people. This is crazy. I haven't seen this in years. But how can we turn this into content? And I was like, man, I gotta talk about this on the show. So it ended up being a blessing that we were able to kind of dig into this Rhino character on the show, and I even warned Jax Falcone before. I said, hey, listen, I'm going to talk about this guy on the show, right? I mean, I'm going to explain what he's doing. I'm not thrilled with the whole experience with this guy. So just letting you know in advance. And he responded and he said, "Get him." So to me, I was like, all right. So I've covered all my bases, and I also beginning to give the cap tip to the undroppables. I was like, I love the undroppables. No, uh, this is, no disparagement of these guys. We love these guys, but there is this one guy that we do need to talk about. So I think, and then it was cool to see the undroppables retweet the link to the show. So that was all good. It ended up being a great bit, I thought.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah. So there's always that guy, Jonathan. What are some of your tips as you're entering in a startup? And keep in mind, like Matt said, and I forget this sometimes too. Like I'm a sicko. Like I'm in 20 leagues. So some people might not know what the untold rules of Dynasty are entering a startup. So how can people set themselves up for success before the draft even starts? What are some of your tips, Jonathan?
Yeah. So what I would say in Podfather, you said it best. Like, if you're in a high stakes league, it's probably best not to put a bunch of jokes, put a bunch of memes. But if it's like, a $10, $20 league, have fun, go for it, go wild. Like, I'm pretty chill about it. The thing that bugs me, and which you were mentioning, was the on the clock thing. If you make your pick and the next guy's up and you say, "Hey, Seth, you're on the clock," I think once is enough. This whole 2 hours later, whatever. Listen, the draft is. I just did a draft where the commissioner had the picks. It was a rookie draft, thankfully, and it was 24 hours for a pick.
Wait, what?
24 hours. It was wild.
That's how much time is in a
4
day.
hours.
Yeah, 4 is.
I like
the
a
good number.
4-hour clock because if you think you're going to be unavailable during that time, and during the day, and then yes, it's shut off from midnight to 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
The next day. But if you think you're going to be unavailable, that's okay. You set your queue. They have a queue. If there wasn't a queue, I would understand it. But there's a queue. When I was going to Greece, I set my queue. Wasn't a big deal. And in fact, what I did was just to turn the knife on this whole OTC business. I decided to set my queue last night, and I drained the entire clock down to 5 seconds to go before making that pick. So the big question now is, do I keep doing that just out of spite, or I think what I'm going to do is I made my point. I did it once just to prove that, hey, I can do this every round. If you guys want to keep hitting me with OTC, the chat is in the app. So if I'm reading OTC, I know I'm on the clock. It would be different if you were texting me, right, or emailing me. Well, that's something else. Like, we have a commissioner in these patron leagues, and he actually emails. His name's Josh Malone. He's great, right? Yep. He emails people when they're on the clock, when they're about to expire, like 30 seconds or 30 minutes to go, right? He'll email them. That's helpful. That's actually helpful. Hey, by the way, 30 minutes to go. And he's doing it out of respect for you because he doesn't want you to time out. These OTC people are doing it for them. It's because they want to coerce you into picking faster because they want to pick. It's not about you. It's about them. It's clearly about them. That's the difference.
Yeah. And one other thing I just wanted to add on to is the whole, if a trade gets posted, there's always the guy that says, "Oh, he got fleeced." No, come on, dude. Like, if you got fleeced, everybody knew it. It's not that big of a deal. And I would just remember, we're here to win championships, but maybe, just maybe, the real championships we win are the friends we make along the way.
People forget that it is indeed a game,
Yeah.
It's it's a fake game that people, have lives outside of. Slow drafts are going to be slow, so don't be the person that complains that a slow draft is taking slow. Join a fast draft.
Isn't it May right now?
It is May.
Yeah.
I feel like it's May. Last time I checked, I looked at the calendar, it's May. There's no way any draft is going to not be finished by the start of the season. So what's the big deal?
Yeah. Do you have 75 more days? Yeah, you do. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. We're going to make it.
Well, that's the thing. If this is the one league that you're in and you're fixated on it, this is what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a lot there. What I do every startup, at least I try, because I'm in a lot of leagues. If it's sleeper, it's really easy to direct message somebody within the app. And so what I hardly ever post in the group chat, unless, it's just a bunch of buddies in there and we're just shooting the breeze or whatever. I try to open a direct message to just about everybody in the league and say, hey, I'm an active owner. My name's Seth. Nice to meet you. And open up that line of communication. So if they're on the clock and they've got a pick that I want, or if I want to trade down, I can post that in the group chat, and maybe
Dude, you're a
they'll
really
send me
good
a direct
player.
message.
That's a
Well, I
really
try
smart
to-
thing to do.
Well,
You're taking it seriously.
Yeah, and
you're actually
also,
here to win. You're here to make the best possible moves. That person's more likely to reach out to you than anyone else to make a deal.
Exactly. And the other tip I would give, since the Podfather's on here, you got to get this book too, right here, the Dynasty Dominator, and you got to get the app. It's one of the best
Reloaded
books.
edition is much better than the old edition.
Yeah. So, wow, Matt, where's your copy?
Hey, Matt, where's yours?
It's at my dad's house.
Oh.
At my dad's house. There's a
Maybe Matt's dad sometimes pops in the chat. Maybe he can confirm that Matt Babbage actually has a copy
This
of
is
the
bad. I
Dynasty,
didn't remind him
Dynasty
about the show
Dominator.
today. So did he find the show on his own this week? We will find out. I don't think so.
Your dad he jumps in the chat. That's really cool.
Yeah,
my dad
my
doesn't know what a podcast is.
Shout out to my dad. He's awesome. He's supported me since I started as a contributor here. So he's great. Gotten the Dynasty Dominator book. He has the app. He watches different player profiler streams, and he's gotten a lot sharper because of it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dead serious.
What does he think of me?
Eccentric. I preface it. I was like, it's because I went through the same thing when I first met you. I was like, this guy's kind of. My friend's like, it's a bit. Like he's not. I think he likes you. I would think you employ me, so
I don't know.
Give me
man.
opportunities.
That was not a ringing endorsement of any kind. Matt Babbage's dad is still lukewarm on the Podfather. That's the official announcement.
Don't take this the wrong way, but we don't have conversations about you necessarily. I'm not like, what do you think about Matt? Like, would you want to be his
He's
friend?
not. I'm sure he's brought up, hey, that guy that yells all the time. What's his problem? I'm sure he said that. Yes,
All right, we do have a question.
Of course he did.
We can hit real quick in the chat. Would you trade number 2 and number 7 for the 101 and get Bijan?
No.
I wouldn't.
Superflex? No.
If it
Normal?
is Superflex,
Probably not.
Superflex, I would say no. If it isn't Superflex, I would probably. And it just depends on your roster, because Bijan feels like a win now piece, doesn't he?
If you're set to win now, I'd go for it. But if it's super flex, it's hard to like. That's Anthony Richardson and Jordan Addison. That's two big pieces.
I think I'd go with the 2 and the 7 in Superflex, guys.
I think so too. I think that's a good.
Yeah, that's Anthony Richardson and Jordan Addison. That's exactly who I was thinking I would get. I just got Jordan Addison in a rookie draft, and I was
It feels
thrilled.
great. It feels so good when you get Jordan Addison in a rookie
I
draft.
couldn't believe it because I've been stuck because I've been drafting and in the second half of these rookie drafts because my teams are always doing well, and I'm always hopeful that I could maybe get Addison, and then I always get stuck with Dalton Kincaid, right? And then all of a sudden I'm looking up and like, there goes Quentin Johnston, there goes Dalton Kincaid, and I'm like, wait a second, I think I'm going to get Jordan Addison. Like, there goes Will Levis. Oh, shit, I just got Jordan Addison. Like, it was awesome. It was great. It was such a rare thing. I had no idea. It was what a gift. So dominant at Pittsburgh. So dominant. you could argue that he kind of made Kenny Pickett, right? Though I would say Kenny Pickett is a quality quarterback in his own right, and he is an interesting, I would say very interesting dynasty asset right now, given that most people do not believe that Kenny Pickett is any good. And that, like, because he wasn't super efficient in his rookie year with one of the worst offensive lines in the sport, that must be who he is. Even though Peyton Manning had an awful rookie year, even though Trevor Lawrence was bad in his rookie year. I mean, go down the list of the quarterbacks that were bad. I mean, Jared Goff was a total embarrassment, right? And now we're talking about Jared Goff being like a great sort of a value pick, right? Think about the value pick that Jared Goff is. Well, I remember after Jared Goff's rookie year, like, he was a total bust. That was the verdict on Jared Goff. So we have years to go to evaluate Kenny Pickett and see what he's ultimately going to be. I know he has the small hands. That is the biggest concern with Kenny Pickett, is the small hands. If Kenny Pickett had average hands, I would be so bullish. He would be my number one target. The small hands, it's with the two gloves. I mean, it's just not like it. You definitely hate seeing a guy with absolute bottom percentile hand size. If a guy has the smallest hands in the history of the position, and there is some correlation between efficiency and hand size, especially in cold weather, and he's in Pittsburgh, then feel free to be concerned. But Pittsburgh has been known as a pretty sound evaluator of talent. Like, they're at least top 10 in terms of just player evaluation. You would say that Pittsburgh's top 5, at least top 10, right?
Oh yeah, they had a great draft this year for sure.
Yes.
Incredible draft, right? And
Yeah,
what do they do?
Broderick
They bolster
Jones.
the offensive line.
Yep.
That's what they needed to do. They drafted a left tackle or right tackle, depending on what they want to do. But yeah, it's so yeah, Broderick Jones, 6'5", 311. He's gonna be a left tackle. Okay. He also runs a sub 5.040. Right.
He plays
So
basketball.
that guy
apparently.
runs a sub 5.040.
Yeah.
That guy's faster than I am. You know, the guy's an incredible athlete, and I'm excited to see what Kenny Pickett can do with a little more pass protection and more rapport built with both Deontay Johnson, but especially George Pickens. So I think there's reason to be hopeful, especially in that division, given that, you know, they're going to be behind a lot, and there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games. And they don't necessarily have like a top defense. I know they drafted Porter, and they did a good job drafting defense and offensive line, and they did a great draft. They went with a lot of chalk moves, with right position, right round, right pick, which is all you need to do. To have like a top 5 draft, all you need to do is just draft the right position in the right round. That's all, right? Or if a guy is slipping to you for no reason, you just draft that guy like Christian Gonzalez. The Patriots had a good draft just because they just took the guy that dropped to him. They didn't overthink it. So in the startup that we talked about, I did draft Kenny Pickett as my third quarterback in Superflex.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I think that's a good move. I like drafting a quality third quarterback in Superflex dynasty leagues. I almost always do that. I'm usually one of the first 2 or 3 people to draft their third quarterback. How about you guys?
Oh yeah, I don't think you can really leave a superflex draft, especially a superflex draft, with less than 3 quality starters. That's one of my rules. If I had a rule,
Ooh, I like that rule.
I've learned that the hard way.
For a superflex, because I remember my first startup. You know, you get, you know, Patrick Mahomes or you get Josh Allen, you get an elite quarterback, and then I forgot about it, and pretty soon I'm staring Teddy Bridgewater right in the face. Back when he was a starter, but as your number 2 quarterback, even when you have Patrick Mahomes, I mean, just not having that quality number 2, at least with the floor or the ceiling rather of a QB1, of a low end QB1, that just kind of minimizes the potential of your starting lineup in a super flex league. And in a tight, like in some of your leagues, Matt, are 2 tight end premium.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the same thing with tight ends in those particular formats. Like I need at least 2 starters, probably 3, at least 3, I would say, in those formats.
Yeah, I recently double tapped tight end first and second round. I went Kincaid Mayer, and that was just a rare thing. Like, getting Jordan Addison at the 110 in a super flex rookie draft is just a rare thing. Things have to break your way at the 110, 111 to actually for Jordan Addison to slip there is just a rare thing. And anyone that's able to double tap Kincaid Mayer, woo, right? That's any kind of tight end premium. That's also a rare feat. So that was cool. Do you guys agree? You go early quarter. So I can tell you that I drafted Kenny Pickett in round 7. So I started Burrow at the 104, Murray at the 209 because I'm in productive struggle, and then Kenny Pickett was the pick after Trey Lance and a couple picks before Jared Goff at the 709. Was that good value on Pickett?
Yeah, definitely. It's good value on Pickett, especially. I'm trying to run an ad after this, but I just looked at Kenny Pickett's accuracy metrics, and that makes me very interested on this whole he's not very good thing, because he was number 2 in catchable pass rate, led the league in deep ball and pressured catchable pass rate, top 10 deep ball pressured completion percentage, 15th in overall accuracy rating. The accuracy metrics are there. He did it with a mediocre supporting cast. I don't know if anyone's in shock and awe over the talent of Deontay Johnson and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. So facing the 90% of his dropbacks where he's getting pressured in 3 or more seconds, I think that's showing signs.
His TD rate was 1.8. He had the lowest TD rate. That's why, had he had more fantasy points, just pure fantasy point scoring, we wouldn't be having this conversation. His differential between expected fantasy points and actual fantasy points was a chasm. It was a difference of 3.3. So his actual fantasy points per game was 12.2. His expected fantasy points per game was 15.6. You're not going to find a bigger differential, and that's just based on the variance of touchdown scoring. His touchdown scoring is going to go way up, both passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns last year. Kenny Pickett screams 5 touchdowns rushing a year. He is, if there's a guy that I could write down 4 to 5 touchdowns rushing per year, it's Kenny Pickett. He is absolutely going to call his number, or they're going to call a rollout on the 4-yard line, and he's going to tuck it and run. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. So why is no one drafting this guy?
I mean, he on playerprofiler.com, you can go look at this and you can see that Kenny Pickett has above average burst, like 83rd percentile burst for a quarterback. So yeah, he's sneaky athletic and sneaky mobile. And so
when you watch him play, it's not sneaky at all.
Yeah,
it's pure. Like he's clearly a Konami QB. And the fact you can get a Konami QB in the same round where a pocket passer like Jared Goff is going, and it's like Jared Goff's weapons aren't better than Pickett's. You know that, right? Goff has Amon-Ra St. Brown, but for the first 5 weeks, that's all he has: Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jameson Williams is that guy that we thought that he showed at Ohio State, then okay. In the second half of the season, Goff's weapons will be better. But I'm expecting a step up from George Pickens. I think it'll be better against zone coverage, especially when they have more time to throw and these corners can't jump the routes. So I'm pretty excited about the Steelers for all the reasons we talked about.
Absolutely. We're going to run an ad real quick. Don't go anywhere, everybody, because we're going to talk more Dynasty with the Podfather. But this is a message from the Podfather, which I don't know if it's going to be. Well, you
don't call it an ad. Just say, hey, before we go to the next topic, listen to what the Podfather has to say about tool X or product Y.
All right.
It's not
Don't go
an ad
anywhere.
at all. It's not an
Listen to
ad.
what
This
the
is- this is
listen
a-
to what
this
the
is an
Podfather.
This is an informative segment from the Podfather.
This is an informative segment from the Podfather.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free, and one of our key missions is to make as much statistics and information and deep analysis available on playerprofiler.com for free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all this possible. If you can't do All In, that's okay. We have a draft kit. Or you can just subscribe to the player rankings. Those now include tight end premium FFPC ranks, our brand new data analysis package will blow your hair back. And of course, there's our Dynasty Deluxe and our DFS Dominator. Take a moment, check out our premium services to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.
And we are back from the informative segment. Now, nobody is as transparent as Player Profiler. Would I trade Lance for Pickett?
In Superflex, absolutely. So I wanted to put this up on the screen because this is a great question. In a single quarterback dynasty league, I'd much prefer Lance because all I care about is the upside. You can always go to the waiver wire and get guys like Jared Goff. Like, they're available in single quarterback leagues. Most teams will carry two quarterbacks, but you can also always draft a quarterback in the second round over a receiver that'll likely bust anyway. So you might as well go for it at quarterback. So you'll notice that one of the great things about our dynasty rankings is when you go to the single quarterback rankings, Lance is higher. When you flip it to Superflex, suddenly Lance is below Pickett because there's a hell of a lot more at stake in Superflex. And you can't just go to the waiver wire and churn and stream quarterbacks. It doesn't work that way. So if there is no waiver wire options at quarterback, then you need to care more about the stability and the floor of the quarterback than the ceiling. And Trey Lance is terrifying, right? His floor is like below the earth. So you don't want to typically draft. There's no way I'll get any Trey Lance in a super flex or two quarterback league. It's just too risky, even as my third quarterback, because the problem is I'm drafting that third quarterback for additional stability. I'm not drafting that third quarterback for upside. Like, I think that's an important note, right? Most years, you're going to have a Matthew Stafford go down with injury. You're going to have a Kyler Murray tear an ACL. Most years, one of your quarterbacks is going to miss time. And that's why you have that third quarterback. It's not to chase rainbows.
No, absolutely. Matt, we're going to continue this dynasty conversation. Matt, what's the next question there on the sheet?
Yes, sir. So we are always open here at Player Profile about the real life decisions we make in leagues. We're talking about it now. You'll hear it on other shows. Theo Greminger has an article series breaking down the real life moves that he makes in Dynasty. So, Jonathan, we'll start with you. What is your go-to Dynasty startup strategy, and what are some players that you've been consistently targeting in startups and rookie drafts?
Yeah, so for me, my number one rule is I love trading, even if it cripples me for a season. I love getting 2 top 8 quarterbacks. I will do what I can, no matter what. If I could leave with Burrow and Hurts, something like that, I will make sure.
Burrow and Hurts, yeah. Well, okay.
I really will. Even if I end up having to start Nelson Aguilar in my flex, like, I will make it happen, because the replaceability value there's always going to be a backup running back that emerges from a backfield. There's always going to be, the slot guy that nobody talks about that comes out of nowhere. You're going to see those values, and they're all going to come up. So I'm willing to, even if I don't want to say productive struggle, because it's not exactly that, but if you can have, 2 anchor quarterbacks, that just gives you a focus where you're just looking at flex guys, I usually end up getting a tight end unless it's 2-point tight end premium or start 2 tight ends like you mentioned earlier. I'm usually getting a tight end around 10, 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. Usually I've noticed Trey McBride's been falling a lot. I think people forgotten about him. That's a guy that I kind of would tend to gravitate toward too, because I think people forgotten about him right now.
Yeah, in the startup, I thought Trey McBride was a good value that I'm in. So I'm looking at the board here. I'm noticing Brian Robinson going 2 rounds ahead of Antonio Gibson. So that always jumps out at me. So Trey McBride was a mid 12th round pick, and I got Dulcich in the mid 10th round, and Chig went Chig Okonkwo, he went 11th round. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at round 10. That's where you're going to go for Dulcich. I think Dulcich has a higher floor and a higher ceiling than McBride. He had a multiple 8-target games. In the few games he did play, he was a target magnet last year. I think they had similar. He and McBride had similar draft capital. I think that it's just been clear that Dulcich is better, and Chig was even more efficient than Dulcich, but just wasn't quite as productive. Wasn't commanding the targets because of such a low volume offense. The offense is a concern, and so those are the 3 guys. And I think in successive rounds, you can just keep going back and trying to get one of those 3 guys. But I think you're right that the firewall is McBride, because after McBride, it's Dawson Knox, Luke Schoonmaker, Isaiah Likely. It's players you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jonathan. And I know it's really hard to. I mean, you kind of have to get lucky. You kind of have to get allocated one of those top 5 picks. But if you can, and I've heard Scott Connor talk about this before, is he's willing to go up just about, his 2nd round pick in the startup, 3rd round, 4th round, as long as he doesn't have to give up a future 1st round pick, he'd be willing to do that to go up into the top 5 and approach that owner. I think I would too. If you can if that's possible for you to go Burrow and Hurts. I know we got the mad scientist who was just on the player profiler today. It is possible. It's tough. It's really hard to do that. But once you get outside a certain tier at quarterback, it gets really tough. I was lucky in a startup. I got Dak at the 112, and then I double tapped quarterback. I got Dak and Deshaun Watson at the 201. I felt pretty comfortable doing that. But a lot of times those quarterbacks get scooped up, especially if you're in a sharp super flex league. So I have no problem with that. I tend to I started out early in my, dynasty journey, being, trade back, didn't really have a plan. And now I'm much more calculated. I've talked about this on the show before. I'm much more year 1. I'm going for it. I am drafting younger players. I'm using Player Profiler as my guide, but tight end is a position that I continually push off because I can get a Chig Okonkwo. I think I got him in the 11th round in the startup that I did. I think that's perfect. That's where he goes. I think you could slot him in as a starting tight end.
One of the most efficient rookie years for a tight end of all time.
Yeah, and if you're, and Kyle Pitts, and we'll talk about him later on, he's really scary to me with that Falcons offense. I know he's the most athletic tight end we've probably ever seen, but he scares me where he goes in Dynasty. I know he's young, so we get these guys for their entire careers. But if I'm going for that 1 or 2 year window, I'm pushing tight end down the board. That's kind of what I'm doing because I'm getting those quarterbacks. I want to draft quarterback high, and that leaves me with not too many options. So the tight end is a position that I feel like I can get some good value later on. What about you, Matt?
Yeah. Which Matt? Matt Babbage.
Matt Babbage, yeah.
Yeah, we say it every year with the tight ends. It comes up every time, right? If you're not top 3, then you're basically as good as, anywhere in the top 20. It's just throw a dart week to week. So unless you're investing on a surefire asset that's a top 3, if you're win now and can afford, Andrews and Kelsey, go for it. Pitts, I have my opinions that we'll talk about, but past that, it's kind of a dead zone, so to speak. And when you can get people like Trey McBride, who's a good value all the way at tight end 18 in a dynasty, or Cole Kmet, who he doesn't have anyone at tight end competing for snaps. And we saw what he was capable of doing last year, even with a high touchdown rate. So he's going to be involved in that offense. There are options way down from 15 to 20 that are essentially just as good as taking a David Njoku right now. So tight ends isn't really my concern, and it's the quarterbacks, right? And so I think the firewall is closer to QB 10, 11, where you need to leave one out. You start looking at Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson at 11, 12. I'm comfortable with rolling one of those 2 out as my QB2, depending on what my setup is. I could even go CJ Stroud through Daniel Jones, who I think is undervalued right now. So QB is the firewall. I'm not necessarily trying to go top 8 every time, but I am trying to secure that right away. And then, like Matt said, getting that third quarterback I haven't done that in the past, and that is why most of my Superflex Dynasty teams have been in kind of a struggle. Because if you miss on your QB2, then you're screwed. You don't have a QB2, you don't have a QB3. You're in you have one quarterback, and then you're going to spend every year trying to draft and get back in it, or hand over the farm, and it just puts you in a really bad situation. So in Superflex, establishing the quarterback is key.
Now, what do you guys think of Murray at the 209?
I don't mind it, but I know people are out on Kyler. I think he's gonna
Why are they out on
this season.
Kyler?
Well,
I don't know, because he's not going to play this year much, and then he's going to go to another team, and that scares people. It's the unknown.
He's perfect for the build. He's perfect for taking the year, building your team up. He's perfect for that. Because Arizona, we talk about who won and who lost the draft. They had kind of a sneaky good draft for what they're going to do. They were able to accrue picks. They moved around. They got an offensive lineman.
It's a great point.
Kyler's a good buy. A good, not a good buy, maybe a good buy. But he's perfect for someone who they may not win this year, but they're going for it next year. He's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted Paris Johnson. And that was perfect.
Yeah, that's it, Paris. Yeah.
And by the way, Kyler Murray signed an extension with the Cardinals. He's there through at least 2028.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 5 years, $230 million. So
I didn't even. Why are so many people talking
guaranteed?
Why are so many people talking about Caleb Williams then to the Cardinals next year? If this is the case, wasn't really thinking about the extension.
Well, they're thinking maybe they could trade him. They're assuming they're assuming they could trade him. So Kyler Murray, and then the next pick after Kyler Murray in this startup was Tua Tagovailoa. Now, Tua to me is terrifying because he had to have a conversation with his family in the offseason about whether he's going to keep playing. So for that reason, I wouldn't invest in Tua in a 2 quarterbacks. It's almost like Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Right? He's almost like Trey Lance in that the risk is terrifying, but the upside is great with the weapons that he has. Right? And someone in the chat, the Fantasy Plumber, is saying no one's ever gonna trade you Kenny Pickett for Trey Lance. And in single quarterback, this guy should be in more single quarterback leagues because absolutely. And I'm in a super flex league, and I just got done talking about how Trey Lance went the pick prior. So I'm literally in even a super flex format. Trey Lance sometimes goes before, and you know why people are doing it. They're doing it because they're chasing that rainbow with their QB3. You understand the logic. I don't agree with the logic. And I certainly wouldn't be drafting Tua in the second round.
No, that's such a scary pick.
I'm too scared. I'm a coward. That's why I won't do it. I won't do it. No way. So,
Well,
I would much rather take my chances with Bryce Young, CJ Stroud than do that. But probably I would do the ultimate coward move, and I would just default back to Kirk Cousins and just run and hide and put my hand in put my hands over my face and hope no one notices or recognizes me. just
Yeah.
in shame. Just like, hey, I did the Cousins thing again. Not sorry. Right. Ugh.
So
That's
great
my only
conversation.
regret, by the way. I've only traded a quarter. My biggest regret in terms of super flex trades recently was trading away Kirk Cousins, thinking I was super strong at quarterback. Wrong. Fell apart. Right.
Yeah.
And because I really wanted Bateman, it was a package, and I was getting Bateman and a first rounder and something else, and I was like, wow, and whoops.
Hey, man.
So in that league, what I'm doing to try to stop the bleeding at quarterback, I have Tannehill. So that's the one league where I do have Will Levis. The only time I would ever draft Will Levis in a dynasty league, super flex, excuse me. I'm happy to draft Will Levis in a single quarterback. Again, you're just shooting for upside. But again, when stability is paramount, the only time that I would consider Levis, and the only time I've ever drafted him, is when I have Tannehill. That's it.
Yeah, I have. Speaking of rookies, we just wrapped up these rookie drafts, and I put out a tweet earlier today. I was going through. I have 23 teams, 23 rookie drafts. I came away the most owned player. Do you guys want to guess who my most owned player is?
Roshan Johnson. Oh, wait. Okay. Rookie drafts or just across all your teams?
Evan Hall.
Rookie drafts. Good
Evan
guess.
Hall.
I think Evan Hall was number 3.
I think I remember it. I think
Should
I
be
saw
Evan
it.
Hall.
Michael Wilson was my. I had 10. I had 10 Michael Wilsons. 10
You
Michael
drafting
Wilsons.
Michael
I'm
Wilson.
not-
Was Evan Hall available when you were drafting Wilson?
No.
Okay, good.
I was getting him in the 4th round, Michael Wilson.
Jesus,
you
really?
Yeah, like late 3rd,
Wow.
4th round.
Was Dwayne McBride available?
That's a good question. I'd have to go back and look, but I have some Dwayne McBride too. But 10, I like to draft those running backs. I know in the 3rd, 4th round that's typically a smart play, but Michael Wilson, man, there's something about him that
He's
in
great.
that fourth
great.
round, I just couldn't say no. I just couldn't say no to Michael Wilson. So Podfather, what are some of your most owned rookies? I know you don't have any. What's the name? The banana eating guy. You don't have any of him. But what are some other rookies that you have?
Yeah. So my most rostered players are we have Michael Wilson with a higher lifetime value rating on the rankings than Dwayne McBride and Evan Hall. It's just that when I'm in a rookie draft, I feel better about drafting a running back. But it's weird. In a startup, I might actually go Michael Wilson. But I'm so wired to just in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, I've been so burned by wide receivers I've drafted. Think about the wide receivers I've drafted. I remember at one point I talked myself into Anthony Schwartz, right, in the 3rd round. I can think of all these receivers I've talked myself. Nico Collins, right? And typically what the guy I was considering at running back would have been like a Khalil Herbert, and then I'm regretting it. So I'm super paranoid, which is why I always default back to Hull and McBride. They're my two by far and away by most rostered guys in rookie drafts. But I do think Michael Wilson is 3rd because in any league where I do need receiver, he's the one non-running back in the round 3, 4, 5 that I have to push the button on. When he is there in the 4th round, I got to get him because he's underrated. He's a day 2 pick. He's got the ideal sort of Roddy White size. He was super impressive at the Senior Bowl, both in drills and in the team drills, but in individual drills as well. Sorry,
Gotcha.
there was a cough. There was a cough there.
No, it sounds no worries. So another thing about Michael Wilson too is he's probably a stash because who knows about Kyler Murray, but I think he's going to be a really good stash to have, especially if like you're getting him in the 4th round.
Marquise Brown is in the last year of his deal. DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins won't even last the season.
That's what. Yeah, I was going to.
So we're going to look up at
DeAndre
the
Hopkins.
next year. It's going to be Rondale Moore and Michael Wilson until they draft someone or sign someone.
Exactly. And then Kyler Murray is going to be 100% healthy, 2 years from now, and Michael Wilson has a chance to be featured. We don't know. We like the player, we like the prospect, but you got a good chance. It's the 4th round. Again and again, I kept seeing him there in the 4th round. I just couldn't say no.
Yeah, I mean, he's best comparable to Josh Palmer, and that's what you're hoping for with a 3rd round pick. You're hoping for a Josh Palmer. You're hoping for a Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, but he also has some similarities to even Terry McLaurin. He doesn't have the blazing speed, but he does have the upper percentile athleticism across the board. He was 13th out of 73 receivers in athleticism score, partly because he's so big and he's so handsome. I mean, my God. I mean, I have to admit that there's a bias there where I'm like, geez, man, like you are magnetic. The same thing happened with Michael Pittman. Like if there's a guy named Michael at the Senior Bowl at playing wide receiver, he's probably super handsome and like magnetic looking. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, look at you.
Yeah, and Chris Olave too, same deal. But us, affections.
The guy that hasn't played more than 6 games. So I mean, he had 418 yards in 6 games. He had 40 targets in 6 games, guys. Think about that.
Yeah.
So he was averaging more than 6 targets a game in college. So this is where you get value. The way you get value is a guy that doesn't have a full season in which you can evaluate, but he did enough in drills. He did enough at the Senior Bowl where the NFL was convinced we got to draft this guy in the 3rd round. So he is the only guy I would even consider in those later rounds at wide receiver. Maybe very late, once McBride and Hall are long gone, I could consider Trey Palmer just based on just chasing the speed, chasing the 4.33 wheels. That's it.
Yeah, that's Jonathan. What about you, man? What are some of the rookies that you wound up with in your rookie drafts?
Yeah, I'm going to give a late round receiver that y'all haven't said yet, which either makes me feel really smart or really dumb. Puka Nacua. He went to a wide open depth chart where there's only Cooper Kupp. Ben Skoranek isn't scaring me away. Neither is Van Jefferson. He's a great run blocker, so I think the coaching staff's going to love it. Get him on the field quicker, and most importantly, and Matt Babich, you mentioned this earlier. You talked about how Caleb Williams was headed to the Cardinals. I feel like he's going to be a Ram next year. I feel like the Rams might be the worst team, and they own that pick. So I kind of like the 2nd year bump. So that was my late round receiver dart throw that I kept going after.
Yeah, thankfully athleticism isn't as predictive for receivers as running backs. Because, oh my God, he's such an enigma wide receiver. The fact that he had such an incredible yards per reception with no athleticism was just bizarre. It was bizarre. He's a bizarre player, and the NFL didn't know what to do with him either. They just said, "Hey, we're gonna draft him in the 5th round. Who knows?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Cedric Tillman? Because I feel like a lot about what you just said about Michael Wilson, because I was looking at his player page when you said 40 targets and 400 and something receiving yards through 6 games. And that's exactly what happened to Cedric Tillman in 2022. And he had a 64 reception and 1,000-yard season before that. There's no
great. He's just going around before what Wilson is.
That's true. The cost is higher.
So yeah, I'm not going to get any of him because I'm going to go Evan Hull. I mean, you guys know Evan Hull is like 210 with, upper percentile athleticism across the board and like a 90 catch season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
great.
And it's scary
great.
for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
It's not good for Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's receptions are going to go down. His targets are going to go down with Evan Hull. Evan Hull is the real deal, man. He did struggle in pass pro at the Senior Bowl. That was it, though. And he clearly, his effort level was incredible. It's just that, other than Roschon Johnson, most of the running backs were getting eaten up in pass pro. So he's going to be flaring out of the backfield, and he can run between the tackles. He has the size. So he could be the Aaron Jones from this class. It's exciting, man. It really is exciting.
Oh yeah, I think I wound up out of 23 leagues, 6 Evan Hull shares. I was thrilled with that. He's, I think, number 2 or number 3 behind Michael Wilson. But we have about 10 minutes left, and then we gotta get off the air for the GOAT District fellas. So stay tuned for them. So we're just gonna throw it out to the round table, buy or sell, and the first, and we're gonna use some of these keep, trade, cut values, because a lot of people go there and they vote on these things. So we call this actually love them or list them, because I made the quote on here, and I try to make this a Bears show, so all the time, which really annoys Matt Babbage. And I brought up the fact that Joanna Gaines and Ship, the NFC North was going to flip. Like the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings were going to be at the bottom, and the Bears and Lions are going to be at the top. And then the Lions kind of screwed up their draft, but they still should be a good team. But anyway, that's why we call this love them or list them. That's my long-winded way of explaining the game, which is basically buy or sell. But the first player we have on here, and he's wide. I can't believe this, honestly. Wide receiver 60 on keep, trade, cut. Jakobi Meyers. Are we loving him or listing him? I mean, we have to love this guy, right?
You've got to love him. I mean, he is a productive slot receiver attached to a veteran quarterback that wants that first and second. He wants to get the ball out as fast as he can. Seth, I could steal your metrics I saw on the show sheet you had listed out. Let me get it up here. Head up.
Steal away, Jonathan.
I'm just gonna rob it here. Yeah, he finished as a wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game over the past 2 seasons, number 29, number 35, number 19 in yards per route run, number 22 in target separation. And we got the new situation, and you got to love the whole Devontae Adams cryptic tweets thing happening, or cryptic Instagram post right now. So, yeah, I'm buying.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player. I just
why not? He's about to be the number 1, and it's going to be Michael Mayer, but he's about to be the number 2 receiver behind Michael Mayer soon enough in Las Vegas. I don't think Devontae Adams is going to be there much longer. Devontae Adams doesn't want to be there. Of course, he doesn't want to be there. Be careful what you wish for, Devontae Adams.
So strange. So strange.
Yeah. So when you compare the voting ADPs on like a keep, trade, cut to our rankings, anytime you have a guy where the differential is more than 10, where we have Myers inside the top 50, then that's a great trade target.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why we bring up the keep, trade, cut thing, because that's a great exercise to do if you're subscribed to the Player Profiler rankings, which you should be, is to go to a site like Keep, Trade, Cut, look at what the voting, like you said, the voting public, and then compare, and then guess what? That player's a value. So the next player is, and we kind of talked about him pre-show, Jordan Love. Jordan Love at QB 17. We loving him or listing him?
There's no place for Jordan Love on any type of roster at that price in Superflex leagues.
What the hell is that about?
No place.
How is that possible?
ahead of Jared Goff, ahead of Kenny Pickett, who we talked about as a screaming buy. I don't get it either. He's never proven anything. The Packers basically begged Aaron Rodgers to come back last year. I don't understand. He didn't prove it in college. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything.
Like a 20th percentile college QBR, a low yards per attempt, but that was in his final year. The year prior, he actually played well, but it was it was in one of these mountain wax schools. I know they're probably part of the Pac-12 now because there's 17,000 schools now in the Pac-12. It's like the Pac-2000. I understand that, but Utah State, right? I mean, in Utah State, you can't post a QBR above 59.8. Right? Utah State competition is picking you off 17 times in your final year. What's going on? I mean, again, he had the great touchdown interception ratio the previous year, 32-6, but it was still Utah State, right? And that season wasn't even that impressive. Like 3,500 passing yards, great. Like, you got to be prolific, man, if you're going to be at Utah State, and he wasn't. And he's not mobile, right? So what are we talking about? From what you're saying, he must be ahead of Kenny Pickett, right? In the keep trade cut rankings.
He is. He's, I think, 1 or 2 spots ahead of Kenny Pickett.
That is so silly. That is so silly on so many levels. He actually has less draft capital. He was drafted later. He's older because he was a senior when he came out. He has less organizational commitment. He has lesser weapons. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
what?
Yeah.
He has, and he doesn't have the rushing ability. That is one of the most irrational dichotomies of two players that I've ever heard. And by the way, this startup that I've been referencing is a bunch of killers, right? It's Scott Barrett, it's Theo, Jax Falcone, Alan Sislowski, as I talked about, and just to put it in context, Pickett went 2 rounds before Love in that league. So there's no delusion among like good players about what Jordan Love is.
I just have to say this real quick. He's on keep trade cut. He's way far ahead of Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr.
The Mac Jones one is what's funny. It's because you look all the way down there. There's Mac Jones at 28, and they're like the same age. And the biggest difference between Jordan Love and Mac Jones is that we know that Mac Jones is limited but good.
Yeah,
Jordan Love probably stinks.
Yeah, we're gonna see what Jordan Love can do with Romeo Dobbs and a second-year Christian Watson and a rookie Jaden Reed. I'm not hopeful. I think he's interesting. Back when he was assumed to be like a late round guy, I thought he'd be a value. But when he skyrockets up in the ADPs, it's like, okay, well, that's dead. I guess that's over.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a real case. I think it's going to happen. Like I said, the division's going to get flipped. Joanna Gaines. It's the Packers are going to be the worst team in that division. And that's going to be largely because of Jordan Love. You look at what the Lions are doing. The Bears might not be there yet, but they've added pieces. The Vikings, well, it could be the Vikings because they were the most fugazi team last year, won in all those close games, negative point differential. But I don't know if the Packers are going to be that good offensively.
The Packers are going to be bad. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No, it's the NFC North might be a sneaky shootout division too, looking at some of those defenses. But the next player we have here is at RB24 on Keep Trade Cut, Devon Achane. How we feeling about that?
Chance.
No chance.
I could be flat wrong, but do we think he is going to be a guy that hits 60% opportunity share like year after year? Because to me, he seems like he's going to be the guy that struggles to hit 60% opportunity share. And if he can't hit that kind of tier break of significant levels of opportunity, where is he going to go from RB24? It's a slippery slope. His value is
we prefer Roshan,
as we should.
Yeah, and then with that you're not going to see that anywhere else.
No,
but the landing position, the speed. He's a one-dimensional slasher, and it wasn't like the draft capital is that much different. 13th pick in the 4th round versus 21st pick in the 3rd round is not a big difference. I'd much rather wait and get a Pacheco, wait and get a Gibson, wait and get a Dillon, or Tajay Spears. It's just ugh.
This right here.
Evan Hall's gonna have a better career.
This right here's the move, I think. I agree with this. Achane's not going to be good long term. Trade after flashes of value. Doesn't it just feel like there's going to be a preseason highlight? There's going to be a week early in the season where Achane's going to break off a huge play, and we all know what happens when that happens. The value goes up for no good reason because of just that single snapshot moment in time. And it feels like, what's the name of the player that I'm trying to think of right now? He played for the Lions. He had one highlight in camp.
Are you actually thinking of it? Is it Kerryon Johnson?
It is Kerryon Johnson. Thank you very much. That's who I'm thinking of because I remember the cut, right? I remember that cut, and that cut probably boosted did boost his value way too high. So I think there's going to be a moment in time where you're going to want to trade Achane. It might be now. If he's RB24, I guess it could. I'd trade him right now.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
But just to give you a sense, like these running backs are going to make people like go crazy because like these 5 in a row, they have Charbonnet at 23, Rachaad White at 24, Achane 25, Pacheco 26, Mixon 27, Kendre Miller is RB 29. And then Roschon Johnson is RB 35.
Joke.
Which is crazy.
Rachaad White's the most undervalued of all those. I mean, Rachaad White's in a completely different tier to those guys.
All right. We have time for one more, and I have to do this to Matt just to do it.
Fine.
David Montgomery is RB 32 on Keep Trade Cut. Are we buying or selling or loving or listing David Montgomery?
I mean, last episode, I already claimed my love for Montgomery this season. I mean, and now Jameer already has this mystery ankle. It's like it's contagious from DeAndre Swift to Jameer Gibbs. It's a contagious ankle condition. I don't know, but this is the best offense he's been in his career, and that's not a hot take. This is the best offense he's going to be in his career. So I'm buying David Montgomery.
Spoiler alert, we have him at RB 21. So the difference between what the market is looking at with David is again, this is one of those instances where there's a gap of more than 10 in the rankings. So this is if you could just go and trade for David Montgomery and Jakobi Meyers, that is the move. Trade Achane for David Montgomery and Jakobi Myers.
I bet you could get that exact deal done. Like
that's why I said it.
Yeah.
Easy.
Seth, you can't bait me though on this one. You tried to bait me because that 32 is good value. I'm in there.
Everybody hates David Montgomery, including you.
In the show sheet, though, you put top 12 season in the show sheet, and I hope that we can agree.
He can.
The only reason, if Jameer Gibbs gets hurt, right, or dies, or pigs fly.
Do you know who the running backs in Detroit are after Jameer Gibbs?
Yes, it's
Craig Reynolds.
Jameer Gibbs.
It's Craig Reynolds. And
I just want to hear. I just want to hear you say that if Jameer Gibbs stays healthy, there's no way in hell that David Montgomery finishes as a top 12 running back, and then we can drop it.
Well, David Montgomery's going to get all the red zone work?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
right? They're not going to hand it to Jameer Gibbs on the 3-yard line. They're not going to do that.
No, they're not.
Jameer Gibbs is 199 pounds. That's not happening. They're going to motion him out. And when it's a pass play, he might score on a throw. He's going to score on some long runs. But, David Montgomery is going to eat with touchdowns this year. That's where the value is going to be. There's going to be more receptions than people think. But it's going to be touchdowns, man. He's going to score a ton. It's going to be crazy. We're talking about he could score 15 touchdowns.
Jamal Williams scored how many last year? 17?
That's what I'm saying.
David Montgomery,
he's better in every phase than Jamal Williams.
2.0. He's Jamal Williams 2.0, and David Montgomery's done it before on a bad offense, like terrible.
They went out and they signed him. They went out and they actively signed him to replace Jamal Williams. He is a good player. He's good at everything except breakaway runs. That's the one thing he stinks at, and that's why they have Jameer Gibbs. Fine.
Boom.
I think it's going to be 60-40 opportunity share split between those two guys. And it's not, I mean, it's not exactly 60-40. It's going to be something like 52, right? 37 with some QB scrambles and, and some Craig Reynolds and some receiver reverses and all that. Understood. But,
I don't like to walk it back, but if it does hit 60-40, then the odds of him reaching top 12 are a lot better than I'm giving him credit for. So I will admit that.
Well, just the touchdowns, man.
Yep.
Even if he, let's say his opportunity share is 51, right? The touchdowns, it's gonna be on for David. I don't even like I've never liked David Montgomery, right? But in this offense, with a team that wanted him, that actively went out and signed him away from the Bears in the division, they watch him every year, twice a year.
Yeah.
And the guy they drafted, it wasn't like they drafted Roschon. They drafted a guy that has no semblance to him, the guy that does the thing that he doesn't do. So it's a complementary piece.
He is the ultimate win now running back in Dynasty because I took over an orphan team and I'm trying to trade away my veterans and just see what I can get for them, because I'm not winning this year. And, in the process of that, I'm trying to trade away David Montgomery. I don't want to, but he's a win now piece and he's not going to help me right now. So I'm going to see what I can get for him. I could not trade him for a 2023 mid-second rounder because I'm thinking, okay, mid-second rounder, that might be Roschon Johnson, right? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't get it done. So I'm assuming you should be able to, in a dynasty league, trade a 2024 second for David Montgomery. And if you're a win-now team and you need a running back, that's just too perfect.
Yeah, I mean, our subscribers are fortunate. They know they can always get Roschon in the second round. They know they can always get Evan Hall. They know they can always get Dwayne McBride. Like they know they can always get Michael Wilson. Like, you're just gonna. I end up getting a lot of the same players. Like in the late rounds of rookie drafts, I don't have a distribution. I don't have a portfolio. Like, I'm not worried about overexposure, right? At all. Like, at no point am I like, Evan Hall's there and I've drafted him 4 times in a row here. I'm going to go somewhere else. No, you go right back to it. You go right back to Roschon. You go right back to Hull. You go right back to these guys.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. We gotta hop off, but real quick, starting with the Podfather, we'll go around the table. Is there anything you got to plug? Any announcements you'd like to make? Bold prediction? You have any bold prediction for the show?
I'm out of gas. My bold prediction is that after this show is over, I crash and I fall asleep in 2 seconds.
Jonathan?
Yeah, just real quick, I just finished the article on fantasy playoff schedules. You can check that to see me complain about bad process and why the Texans aren't going to be the worst run defense again. And just real quick, I do have one bold prediction because everybody was talking about it earlier, and I have to say it now. I was doing some quick reading, and I noticed this was a tweet from JJ Zacharyson. During weeks 1 through 8, the Steelers were 31st in scoring rate per drive, touchdown or field goal, and 32nd in yards per drive. They had their bye week in week 9. Week 10 through 18, they were 7th in scoring rate per drive with a touchdown or field goal and 3rd in yards per drive. The team adds Broderick Johnson at tackle. They sign Isaac Sumalo.
Yes, the guard. That's right. They signed a guard for like $24 million.
He was a top 10 guard by PFF. He did awesome in Philadelphia. They draft a mauler at tight end, Darnell Washington. He's just going to crush in the run game. Najee Harris is going to finish as a top 5 running back this year. I don't know if we're ready for it.
Najee Harris, man, I love it. Steelers, guys. Listen, every year I've been fading the Steelers into oblivion. Going back to Ben Roethlisberger's last 3 years, I was like, this guy is an embarrassment. Last year, I was like, they exceeded expectations. Now, finally, everyone's off the Steelers, and I'm in.
Once
Boom.
everyone's out,
Yeah,
I'm in.
and
That's-
back in.
Exactly.
Speaking of everyone being out and me going back in, well, first of all, my plug, I'm going on vacations. I haven't been working on much, so I'm working on some draft kit stuff. But other than that, I'm focusing on the bold prediction here. I was going to go with a running back too. I'm not going to be as bold as top 5, but this team also made some offensive line moves. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. They also added 0 significant running back competition. And if you want to get hyped on Travion Williams, then be my guest, because I am going to take Joe Mixon and watch out for another top 10 RB season out of him.
60
Yes,
catches
sir.
last year.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is a great value right now where he's going in some of those best ball drafts. It's crazy. Like, I'm seeing 5th round for him. Like, that's nuts. Is that all you got, Matt? Babbage?
Yeah.
Okay. All
You'll
right.
see me
Well,
next week.
yeah, well, same time, same station. Next week, tune into the Writers Roundtable, 7 p.m. Central Time. Do yourself a favor. Go get free Dynasty redraft. Any kind of thing you want to get better at is located in the news and articles section at playerprofiler.com, where you can see Jonathan, Matt, and the Podfather.
And
is
sign up
writing
for the
an
newsletter
article.
on the homepage.
Sign up for the newsletter on the homepage. And if you want a way to support us and what we're doing, and you think this is like the best thing you've ever seen, because it is, sign up for the all-in package, and do not use promo code Maddie, because he's winning right now. And I don't want Maddie to win. I want to win. So use promo code Seth. And I know some people are trying to get you to not spell it correctly, which they don't like you very much, because then you won't get the promotion. It's Seth. It's not that hard to spell, Maddie Kiwoom. So use promo code Seth, not Maddie, or use either one. It's fine. But sign up for the all-in package on playerprofiler.com. If you use one of those promo codes, or Cody, or there's other ones.
Hey, I got a bold prediction. How about this for a bold prediction? Kenny Pickett, QB9.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Not
Love it.
QB10, not just top 10 QB, QB9.
Exactly QB9.
QB9.
And here's my bold prediction. Aaron Rodgers is going to finish outside the top 15 QBs. But you want to know why? As I scramble around for the end screen that I'm going to hit properly this time, because nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers and he's dust. Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.